And that is not good news for the Miami Heat. That is a rough injury, and he has been their leading scorer, Goran Dragic has, in these playoffs. All right, let's get to some highlights. Game 1 is in the books. Lakers trying to win another championship. LeBron going for his 4th. Jimmy Butler in his
pose his will. Look, there's so much discussion and narrative about anybody. Everybody just looks at that last column on the box score, whether somebody scored, how much they've scored, and whether that impacts winning. I think if anything, Jimmy and this team is proving all of those kind of analytics wrong. You can impact winning in a lot of different ways, and he epitomizes that.
Coach, appreciate the time right before the game.
Thanks,
guys, back to you.
Thank you so much, Jared. That was moments ago. Here's a look at Alex Caruso warming up for the Los Angeles Lakers. We talked a little bit about Rondo and what he brings to the table. Caruso, another perimeter player, has been consistent with his play in the playoffs, up the ante a bit since the regular season ended, which is what you want out of your players heading into a championship run. And Jared Greenberg has been busy, as you all know. Moments ago, he had a chance to catch up with Los Angeles Lakers head coach Frank Vogel.
All right, Stephanie. Coach Vogel, with all that you have been through and the league has been through this year, and particularly the loss that your organization has suffered, what does it mean at this point to now be 4 wins away from a championship?
Well, that's a loaded question, obviously. We have been through a lot, and obviously the news about Kobe and Gigi was devastating for us and for our franchise and for our fan base. And at that point, we knew we wanted to embody what he stood for and represent his memory. And we've been on that mission ever since, and playing with a purpose. And we put ourselves in a position to win a championship. But 4 wins away, and very locked in on getting that done.
We know how much this means to LeBron. There's obviously several storylines that feature him against his former team, but what do you see in him and his intention heading into a game like tonight?
Just extremely mentally locked in. It's been that way. Once you learn your opponent, we meet as a coaching staff and we come in and have all these ideas on schemes and how we got to attack offensively and lineups and all these types of things. And we come in and present them, and you can see when we start talking to the team, he's already thought about all these things. He's already played these scenarios out in his mind, and to have that type of mental approach from your leader, one of your leaders, it really strengthens what you're doing, gives you belief in what you're doing, and confidence that you can prevail.
Coach, thank you so much for your time right before the game.
All right,
back to you.
Contributor to the show, Draymond Green. How are you? Good to see you.
Thank you, Stephanie. I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. So listen, you went to finals and won championships with Andre Iguodala. A few of them against LeBron James. What does Iggy bring to the championship table?
I think when you speaking of Andre, he's one of the smartest players in the game. And when you have a guy like that on your team, the further you get in the playoffs, it matters. The game plan matters more and more. You can't have those game plan mistakes. And Andre, he's never going to have a game plan mistake. He's going to cover up for everyone else's mistakes on the defensive end. And as we saw in Game 7, when the money's on the line, he's going to step up, and somehow his shot is always working when the money's on the line. He's always ready for that moment.
How you doing?
I'm good, Smitty. How you doing?
I'm good. Talk to me. You said, Andre Iguodala, we all know him defensively, but talk to me about his offensive smart, how intelligent he is. And he talked to me about he's always a pass-first guy, but he scores a lot in the clutch.
No doubt about it. He's always going to look to get guys open, as we saw a lot with Steph, Clay, and KD. Always looking to find those guys. If the shot's there, he'll take it. One thing Andre there's times where he's reluctant in taking his shot, but never in the big game, never in the big moment. He's hit several game winners for us where KD could take that shot, Steph could take that shot, Clay could take that shot. He's not scared of that moment. And, he's always, no matter who he's on the floor with, he's always going to be one of, if not the smartest player on the floor.
Hey, Draymond, you talk about defensively, with Andre, but also yourself. There's two guys that you have to guard a lot, and he has to guard. Both. If you were playing in this series, you'd be matched up with either AD and LeBron at times. He's like matched up with LeBron. How do you think the zone is going to affect them? What would you do defensively and individually to try to slow those guys down?
Oh, well, I think the zone will affect them a little bit. I think there's no surprise that the Lakers isn't the greatest shooting team, and so the zone can affect them. On the flip side of that, though, they're a great offensive rebounding team, and it's hard to rebound out of a zone. Where I think the Miami Heat can really make a difference in this series is making Rondo a priority. I think the Lakers as a whole, when you look at their team, they're a great point guard away from being a great team, an all-time great team. But they're a good point guard away from being a very, very good team, and here they are in the finals. Well, that good point guard has shown up over the last series and a half in Rajon Rondo and has taken them to another level. If they can really you can't sit back on Rondo. The idea is always to sit back because he can't shoot and give him the shot. Well, he's become a better shooter, but you're still not going to lose by the shot. But if you sit back, now you allow Rondo to do what he loves to do, which is playmaking and get other guys involved. So I think they really need to press up on Rondo, and I think Rondo has to be their third priority. When you're talking AD and LeBron, they're going to get what they get. But if you can take Rondo out this series, it gives Miami a much better shot at winning.
I agree with you in terms of Rondo being the key in this series because Miami plays so much zone. And as Kenny knows, you got to be able to recognize the zone, the man, what defense is coming at you in terms of scheme, and then you're working against the clock. And when we talk about, Rondo, and then you talk about Andre, you're talking about two of the smartest players that are in the game today. Can you speak about Iguodala in terms of his smartness and also his ability to prepare and then communicate to his teammates throughout the course of the game in terms of defensive switches and defensive schemes, how that helped you and how this is helping the Miami Heat?
It helped me a ton because Andre is one of those guys who he sees the play before it happens and he's communicating. He's going to pull you to the side every now and then and kind of give you some pointers, but he's not a guy who's always talking. And so when he is talking, it means more. It goes a lot further when he is speaking because he doesn't do it all the time. But it's very impactful and very meaningful and helpful when he does it. And so I think, when you start talking about Rondo and Andre, it'll be a chess match between those guys, trying to outthink each other. And when you have the basketball IQ like that, you love to take on that challenge. When you're speaking of some of the smartest guys in the league, you love to try to outsmart them. So I know Andre will step up to that challenge. I know Rondo will step up to that challenge. You're talking two guys who's already champions. They know what it takes. They understand the preparation, and they know how important they are to their team.
Draymond, first of all, congratulations on the birth of your new beautiful child. Second of all, if you're Frank Vogel, do you start big with Dwight Howard or do you start with AD so he can match up against Bam Adebayo?
If I'm Frank Vogel, I'm starting big with Dwight or JaVale, whichever guy you decide to go with, only because I think all year long, and especially without Avery Bradley in this bubble, we've talked about them not being as deep at the guard position. And so I think when you're speaking of playoff basketball and especially the NBA Finals, you have to have an adjustment. And, throughout the course of the series, there's some point once after you take that first loss or you come close to losing where you have to make an adjustment. And if they go small to start, you're almost taking your adjustment away. And so where do you go if that doesn't work? Because I don't think there's no surprise that Bam possibly will give Dwight and JaVale fits out on the perimeter. And so I would start big if I was Vogel. That's what they have hung their hats on all season long. And although they had to go away from it for the Houston series, that's who they are. AD is not a huge fan of playing the five. If that's your adjustment where you have to go to that, then great. But I don't think you take your adjustment away starting the series.
All right, before we let you go, Draymond, we want to check out social media. I have a feeling that it may be something that you're interested in commenting on. Let's see. Shaq with the Beverly Hillbillies Jethro Bodine phone behind him.